Welcome to Get the Net, a fishing podcast that takes a deep dive into competitive events, fishing news, tips, tactics, and most importantly, interviews with some of the most interesting and in-tuned anglers from Canada to the central U.S. We're leaving no stone unturned to bring you the most raw and authentic dock talk. My name is Jamie Bruce. While my resume says bass, my frying pan says walleye, and I'm no stranger to the multi-species realm. Whether you're puttering on tackle, driving the bus, cutting the grass, or killing time in a 9 to 5, we'll try to give you something in every episode to take with you on the water, or at the very least, bring you a few laughs. What's going on? Jamie Bruce here, trying something totally new. This is Get the Net. It's a podcast I'm firing up, and currently is Northwestern Ontario's only fishing-focused podcast. Just, one of those things I've been wanting to do for a little bit. I really enjoy the few good fishing podcasts that are out there. I like the local ones like the Casting Deck in Manitoba, Weekend Warriors in Saskatchewan. Just found that there was a bit of a void when it came to, Northwestern Ontario and, northern Minnesota and in that general area. So just kind of throwing my hat into the ring. I'm fortunate enough to have met a lot of people, in the industry and in the fishing community over the years. And I've been to a lot of the cool places and met a bunch of characters. So hopefully enough of them will talk to me that we can kind of string together a season here. Probably going to do one every couple of weeks, but we'll see how it goes. Starting a podcast can be a little bit daunting. It really doesn't take a whole lot of equipment. We've got some Bush League gear here currently, but hopefully it doesn't sound too terrible. It's something I've been looking at doing for quite a while and just really needed a boost to do it. So finally today, I decided I'm going to do it. So it was kind of a little bit of a touch of fate last night. I was sleeping around 1 a.m. and my dog started freaking out and I heard a large bang. So I flew out of bed and started running down the stairs. Our bedroom's upstairs and the dog's on the main floor. And I made about 2 steps down, bailed backwards, folded up like a cheap suitcase and just yard sailed down the stairs, just a pile of wreckage. So ended up being a bear we saw on the camera later. Not that I even made it to the door. I was crippled up. So, I'm sitting around this weekend a little bit. I'm kind of in rest mode. So what better time than to crank up a fishing podcast? I'm sitting here, it's late April. There's ice all over the lake. There's 3 feet out there. I've still been ice fishing regularly. When I got back from Tennessee, I swore I wouldn't go again this year, but it keeps roping me back out there. So we've probably got at least another 10 good days of ice fishing left. And, everyone's kind of been just waiting around on the ice. Last year, Lake of the Woods and all the surrounding lakes were gone right now. And this year, that isn't the case. First tournament of the year that we're going to look at is the Falcon Lake Bass Tournament, hosted by the Manitoba Bass Anglers, Falcon Lake, Manitoba. I know I just said that this was an Ontario-based podcast, and now I'm kind of cutting the grass of the Manitoba podcast. But anyway, that derby set for May 14th is not looking good. There's an ice-out cancellation date of May 28th, which would probably be a lot better of a tournament, a little bit more dynamic. You'd be able to catch them casting and deep. The best case scenario is that May 28th date anyway for the tournament. It just spreads the fish out a lot more, makes them a little bit more accessible. But anyway, I'm not going to wait around here till May 14th. I called my regular Falcon Lake partner, Brian McNanny, and asked if he wanted to get down to Sturgeon Bay. He's never been there before. I haven't been in years. So we ponied up for that one. Definitely looking forward to getting back down there. Last couple of years, regular Canadians haven't been able to go. Chris and Corey Johnston went and won it. They were down there for Bassmaster stuff anyway, but because of the border issues, we haven't been able to go. So looking forward to cranking that up. Hopefully get back and are able to fish Falcon Lake on that ice out date of the 28th. So be pretty cool. There's going to be lots of things to look at over the course of the season. I mean, there's always so many stories and interesting things that happen over the course of a season that are just left untold. So we're going to dive into some of that stuff, and we'll take a look at other tournaments and anglers in kind of the central U.S. where everything goes down. But we're going to do a lot of local stuff too. So not sure how this is going to go. We're just going to kind of feel it out, and hopefully we can keep it rocking. My biggest fear is not sticking with it, so I'm just looking at doing it every 2 weeks, just to ensure you're not getting total garbage slapped together. Because it sounds like just an hour talking about fishing, but there's a little bit more that goes into it. So we're looking at a bi-weekly schedule for right now. But anyway, hot piece of news coming across the board: the Kenora Bass International, Canada's biggest bass tournament, announced a little while ago that the Rainy River and the U.S. side of Lake of the Woods would now be closed to competition for the KBI. So, the Rainy River is 70 miles away. And once you're into the Rainy River, you can keep going after that. The significance of them closing the river is pretty big. It's been won there 5 of the last 9 years, I believe. I looked at the stats, and I think that's what I came up with. So, obviously it's a big player. It's way far away. I don't have anything to do with the decision making or have any influence on the decisions or anything like that. So just going to kind of put it out there and, give you my thoughts on it. I totally support the decision, not just because of the fuel thing or the safety aspect, but a lot of it is because you can't monitor any activity down there. Not that you can monitor someone in the middle of the lake anyway, but there's a lot of issues with borders and things like that. That raised a lot of concerns. There were a lot of people, filing protests last year. And like the people that run this tournament are volunteers. They're not being paid to do this. Like, some of these big tournaments down in the US, they're volunteers and they're getting phone calls at all hours of the night. And, they're already working hard, and now they're dealing with all this stuff from all the river drama that was going on last year. So the tournament's going to continue. That's great news. Some of the people that took the time to find the fish in the Rainy River are, they're kind of SOL, but it's just one of those things. The playing field's the same for everyone. It always has been. And just going to have to catch them somewhere else. So we're going to talk to a couple river warriors and kind of get their take on it. I'm sure it'll be an interesting discussion. So keep an eye out for that in the next couple of weeks. But for the first episode here, I've got a treat for us. It was my first call when I thought of firing up a podcast. And for whatever reason, he agreed to speak with us. This guy that's coming on has been around the tournament scene for as long as anyone that I know, has had huge success in the bass and walleye world. And he's not a dinosaur. He's still winning tournaments. This guy's a super hammer. He's one of the biggest tinkerers I've ever seen. A lot of things that people do regularly came from him. And a lot of techniques he helped refine, and he really shaped the world of competitive bass and walleye fishing in Canada and the US. So I'm going to stop pumping his tires here and let's get him on. It's Alex Keszler. All right. Alex Kesler's graced us with his presence here. I just pumped his tires for probably 2 minutes, kind of fanboyed out a little bit. That's something that you're going to find with me a little bit. I'm a bit of a fishing nerd, but we've got him here on the other line. He agreed to do this podcast. Like I said, he was the first call, one of the top bass and walleye anglers Canada's ever seen, and super excited to have him on. So, hey, Kez, what's going on, bud?
Hey, not much. It sounds like you're picking on the old guys first and then working up to the young guys.
Yeah, well, the hope is that we thicken their skin up a little bit before we have them on. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
We'll get the pioneers of the game on here first, and ease into the season. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure being with you here.
Yeah. I'm happy you agreed to. It's a 50-50 toss up. Throwing out an invite to someone like you, and I'm happy you bit. So I've got a fanboy out here for a second here, Kez. The first time I've ever laid eyes on you in your natural competitive setting was at the Kenora Bass International, probably back in the early 2000s. I went down there to watch weigh in, have a waffle cone, chill out a little bit, check out the rigs, and you were sitting there waiting for your turn in the top 10 boat parade. I saw this 250 tiller on a Lund Pro guide, and I looked down and saw like 7 transducers on the board on the back. And I remember looking like, who is this guy? So I saw you over there, and I walked over, and I was into fishing at the time, so I asked, like, what do you need all those transducers for? And you looked back at me and swiftly and confidently said, why fish blind? And that's not something you're ever going to remember, but that's something that I kind of carried with me, as I got into fishing. So just wanted to put that out there that you changed the way I look at fishing and electronics and everything like that. So thanks for
Yeah.
that, boss.
Well, all those transducers, like, when you're rigging a boat, you don't want no breakdowns in a tournament. So I was bad for mounting like a couple extras, so I wouldn't have to go through the pain of pulling wires and in the middle of a tournament. And all I got to do is unplug and replug. So that was one of my strategies. And there was no room on my board. I remember this story good. And I had one turned upside down. And somebody came and asked me, I don't know who it was, and says, "Hey, what is that one for?" And I couldn't even answer. It was just, I think I said, like, you figure it out. It was just turned upside down so I could take it off and put it where if the other one's done, I could just put it down there, change it out, and put the other one up there. They were curious. They wanted to know everything you were doing.
Yeah, well, when you go out and take everyone's lunch money every weekend, they're gonna have some questions. We're gonna dive in here, bud.
Sure.
How long you've been playing this game before we get into it?
Okay. I'd say my first tournament, I was the age of 18, which would be about 47 years, 46 years.
Okay, I wasn't ready for that number. That's pretty ridiculous. I
Yeah.
got to hear this. Uh, yeah. What was the first tournament?
Well, the first taste of any kind of fishing derby, I guess that's what they're called back then. They were having one in Seven Sisters, Manitoba, which is part of the Winnipeg River. And it was one of those where you just go fish wherever around there, and then you bring your fish to the Seven Sisters Wildlife and weigh it in. And so my dad took myself, my 2 brothers, and a friend of ours, and we had a bay that we used to just walk in and pike fish. And
Hmm.
we figured we're going for the big fish. We're going to go for the win, right? And it was all on some kind of conversion scale, like walleyes would count, whitefish, and they had a formula to figure out. Long story short, we brought in 4 pike. Smallest was like 18 pounds, and the biggest was like 26 or 27 pounds.
All
And
dead
we
as
won.
nails.
Yeah, we won 4 out of the 5 prizes, and that was actually my dad's first boat. He won a 12-foot car topper. I was probably maybe 13 or 14 years old, and that car topper started the real disease for fishing. Once
Wow.
we got out, once we got out in that boat, he bought a 6 horsepower Viking. I never. It's a very unknown motor. I hardly ever hear that name, but this is a 6 horse Viking we put on the back, and then we started exploring. That's how it started.
So, he, what boat did you fish the tournament in?
It was offshore. We fished offshore. Not everybody had a boat back then. We didn't even have a boat.
This is why you're the first call, bud.
Yeah. And
No
and
one
and
no one's got a story of putting 4 20-pound pike on a stringer from shore,
yeah,
walking them to the weigh-in, and winning a tournament boat.
yeah. It was unbelievable. Like we thought, oh boy, maybe we'll win something. Well, we won 4 out of 5 prizes.
Wow.
It was, and people looked at us like, where did these guys come from? And
That's
my
all.
dad, he loved fishing for the big pike. Like we were like 5, 6 years old. He'd take us, and we didn't even care about fishing back then. And we'd be sitting, with a piece of plastic over us while he's waiting for them big bobbers to go down. And it was all big bait fishing with floats. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And my
Wow.
first actual tournament, I think I was 18.
Mhm.
And when I think that's when a few tournaments finally started here, and how it started for me, the tournament scene, I owe it to two gentlemen, Gary Roach and Randy Ammonroot, very well known. Mr. Walleye Specialties was their company, and
Yeah,
they
I used
came
to have
up
his
here to
lightning
our,
rod.
yeah, they came up to a tackle store here that helped sponsor a couple of guys a little bit in fishing, and I was fortunate to be one of them. And I got to meet them, and they did seminar, and then they said, tomorrow we're going to go out fishing. Didn't even have a locator or nothing. I had a 14-foot Lund. That's all I had with a 20 horse. And we went to Barron Lake. You know where that is, right across from Falcon.
Yeah.
It was really windy that day. He says, is there another little lake with walleye? I says, yeah, right across the road. The wind won't get us. So we went in there, and I remember this so well. I sat, I think they had two seats in the boat only. I sat on a 5-gallon pail, and I didn't even fish for the first 2 hours. I sat on a pail and I watched right beside him. I watched that locator for 2 hours while he explained to me the whole setup, the hard bottom, soft bottom, that might be a fish and that could be a rock. And it was just amazing. And then after about 2 hours of watching them, and they were catching fish, I wasn't even fishing. And he found a ledge right in the middle of the lake. It was just a hard spot that had a little 2 to 3 foot break on it. And he said, man, is there fish along this edge? And we sat there and just pounded them. It was amazing.
You were mesmerized.
Oh, as soon as I got back, next day I bought a Lowrance flasher.
Was it a Lowrance fish locator?
Yes, fish locator. Yeah.
I bought one of those from the Longbow Lake Community Yard Sale when I was 11 years old. It
Yep.
didn't come with a transducer, but it was
Yeah.
a hell of a piece of kit.
Oh, I'll tell you what.
I dreamed of the day to plug it in, but that's really cool that's how it started.
And that's when it started. And then some of these tournaments started. There was like the Big Fin Derby, and then there was Gary Roach Pro-Am actually started at Lac de Bonnie, Manitoba.
Okay.
And they came up to fish that. And I remember in the first one against those guys, I think I ended up second, which was quite a feat.
And how old were you at this point?
I probably was like 20.
Okay. So you had a flasher now.
Oh yeah, I had a flasher.
You had the 14 footer. You had the 20 horse.
Yep.
And these guys were in like 17.
They had like the old Lund Pro Anglers, like 16 footers with 50s on them. And they were like Cadillacs. Those were the Cadillacs.
Were you killing all the fish at the time or live?
I think at the time it didn't matter, dead or alive.
Bon Jovi.
Yeah. It didn't really matter. But it was pretty amazing. Just that I guess I would call it the push. I got the push from those guys.
Yeah.
And then I got to meet Al Linder and everybody, and did some early filming at Pine Falls and stuff like that. And the whole thing created such a hunger to catch as many fish as you can in a day and make sure there's big ones in there somewhere. It really, I know, I couldn't even sleep at night. I still can't.
Did you, when you closed your eyes, you must have saw the flasher every night. Because I know that happens to me.
It's just it's something that's, when it's in you, it's installed. It's there. Never goes away. Never goes away.
That's
like
awesome.
I can honestly tell you, every fish I catch, even now, is like the first one I've ever caught. Like I've had people comment like, hey, like, you've caught enough fish in your life. Why are you so excited? I don't even know I'm doing it. It's just the way I am. It's pretty cool.
Well, I can see it in you. I mean, a lot of guys start this sport and, fade pretty quickly, and that's just it. They kind of get sick of it. They never really loved fishing to begin with. A lot of them are just competitive by nature, but obviously if you've been doing it this long and, are still fishing as much as you are, the passion's pretty clear. So you get fired up in the boat still?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's exciting. I fish most of my tournaments now with Daryl, but over the years, I fished with Amanda and my other son Brian, and I've won tournaments with all three of my kids, so that's pretty cool too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something special. Well, we got to get back into this tournament up and coming. I mean, so you're 20. The tournaments at the time, like you were kind of coming up with the tournaments in the area,
Yes,
weren't you? Like they were
yes,
just starting to catch popularity.
yeah,
Um, Walk me through that a little bit as best you can.
yeah. There was a few. I remember a fella, Dan Cernick, ran the Whopper Walleye Derby, and then he had a 3 tournament swing there. Like at the end of the year, there would be a team of the year, and he had like I think it was Red River, Pine Falls, and I believe it was Winnipeg River. And you fished all three, and whoever had the most points, and that you gathered. So it started way back, like way back. I was just a young guy then, but the hunger, like to figure out to develop an edge, that was the key. When you had an edge, you knew you were going to kick everybody's butt. When you felt you had that edge, it was just 7 out of 10 times you felt like, okay, end of the day, we're going to win. We got it. We got this one. That's how it felt. And that's how it worked so many times for me.
So was your edge at the time, was that still the flasher? Was it just getting
Yes,
really proficient on the flasher still?
edge was 100% the flasher, but the key was understanding how to take what you saw in the flasher and draw it in your head,
Hmm.
like immediately. When I was driving a structure, okay, it came up 15. Okay, oh, it's dropped. Oh boy, it dropped real quick. Okay, there's a sharp break on that side. Then I drive the other edge. Oh, here's a long tapered finger. Now I know over here it's sharp. Here's a tapered finger, and okay, it's not a very big reef. Like that, it was like a processor in a computer. As I was seeing it on the flasher, I was drawing it up here. It was just crazy how you could go to that structure and drive around, and we had no GPS back then,
Yeah.
and you could recognize, okay, here's where I got to be. This is where they were last time, and they were big, and here, look, here they are again. Then you start to understand, okay, the spot on the spot, and like that was like 20, 21 years old when all that was going on.
Yeah, you're drawing in your head what forward facing sonar just shows you now.
Yes, yes.
It probably looked really similar too. I don't know how you did it without GPS.
It was hard. Yeah, we called it gridding. It was marker boys were big back then too.
Hmm.
But then once you threw a marker, it was like an invite. Oh, Kez has got a marker.
Well, you were one of the first guys to start painting your marker buoys black.
Yes, and then I would always sometimes I would throw a nice yellow one, but it'd be tied up at about 8 feet with a nice heavy sinker, so it would drift away slowly. And you'd go fish around that, and then once the crowd kind of comes with you, you just slide back to the black one. Yeah, yeah, we were. I mean,
We're gonna
that's
get
how
into
you
all
had to
your
be.
sneaky tricks.
Well, back then, like when you had that edge, you wanted to keep it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Was there anyone else kind of like alongside you that you really had to
Oh yeah,
worry about?
yeah. Teddy Stooner.
Yeah,
I mean, he was crazy deadly from day one till
yeah,
now. I mean, I
yeah.
grew up with Ted. I've known him since I was 3 years old.
And
Uh,
he was doing the same, like fishing the
oh yeah,
same
he
circuit, and
understood. Yeah.
you guys were neck and neck back then, or
Oh
did you
yeah,
have more
we
time?
were each other's biggest competition all our lives, pretty much.
Yeah.
Until you young guys showed up. you know.
Well, don't worry, we're still terrified to be
But
getting
I'll tell you one. I'll tell you a quick story too. Like after I got back with that flasher incident with Gary Roach and Randy Ammonroot,
Mhm.
I got a hold of Ted, and
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, I got to come out. I got to show you something. We got to go fishing. I got to show you this." And I went out there and I explained to him how it worked, and we started fishing. We found some big boulders close to where he fished and always caught fish. And then when we found these big boulders, we were just hammering fish. And to this day, like I don't have to tell you how he is.
Yeah, you cost a lot of people a lot of money showing him that graph.
No, he would have got it very shortly after, I'm sure.
Yeah, and he'd be the guy that would do it all night.
Yeah.
I've still rarely seen anyone with a work ethic like his. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And then Goozy, he was back in the days too.
oh yeah,
He was up there,
yeah.
and there's a
You
few
guys,
other guys too.
you guys were the tiller trio that I would see when I first started fishing.
Yeah,
So you three, obviously there's some more and some really good ones, but um, we got to get back into this up and coming. So
sure.
you're doing good in tournaments. Stooner's right there with you. When did it kind of switch gears to like how many boats were in these tournaments back then?
Back then, it started probably with like the first few tournaments had 20, 25 boats,
Yeah, and
and then
then
it progressed. I remember probably 10, 15 years ago, there was still like 100 teams at Pine Falls. Like it's dwindled a little now, but like it always kind of grew. And then it got to a place where in the local base was there. You'd always get some outsiders coming, and there was
mhm,
always really good turnouts because the fishing was good.
mhm.
You know, I'm not saying way back then, but it built up to like 100 boats.
Yeah. So when did you and Ted Stooner are both? We got to have Teddy on if he'll talk to us. But um, you guys and Goozy too all hopped over into the bass world. When did that start rolling? Like, was that around the time when KBI started, or how did that
Yeah, I'm
transition
pretty sure
happen?
that's when that came around.
Now KBI is like 30 years old now, probably.
Yes, yes,
So
that's when that came around. And we always liked to catch a bass because you'd always catch a bass while you're walleye fishing.
yeah.
And that was an extra challenge too because those things can mess you up way more than a walleye could ever. They can be 2 feet, they could be 10 feet, they could be 15, they could be 30, they could be in weeds, they could be in rocks. So you really had to, I don't know, really work hard to figure those things out at times, especially way back.
Yeah, well, I mean, another factor that we didn't touch on yet is, the live bait to fake bait thing. Like when KBI first started, were you allowed to use live bait or was it artificials only?
I'm thinking it was artificials only.
Now, how'd you make that transition from walleye? Because obviously you guys were using meat for
Yeah,
walleye wherever you could. Uh,
yeah, yeah. I remember the the Berkeley was big into the soft plastics and some other companies, and that's how it started. And then rattling crankbaits and top waters and whatever you can get your hands on to try. It advanced, and then all the walleye knowledge. You always went back to the walleye knowledge: how to find the structure, how to fish the structure, where the fish relate to it, and is this one of those spots where when they're on the structure, they're always there, So the walleye game really, really helped for understanding a lot of the bass game too.
so did you go right to offshore when you first started fishing
No,
bass, or were you on the bank
no,
with everyone else?
no. Most people were bank beaten. That's how it was.
And were you doing well back then, or did that come later when you went
I
offshore?
can't remember. I think I think it took a few years to do pretty good at the KBI because the game was pretty new,
Yeah,
but bass fishing was new to me. And but we did have our moments. Like I used to fish with Phil Colleen, and
yeah.
I'm thinking we're second and third once, and that was quite a few years ago too.
Yeah. So you were still competing on the bank.
Yeah,
But when you guys started to slide offshore is
yeah,
when the real domination started to take place,
yeah.
right?
The game changed. Yeah, and there was another part to that too. Like when the smelt showed up, that changed the game too. You know, that really
Right.
changed. That changed. They grew bigger. There's more of them together, and when you found the right bunch, it didn't matter who you were. When you found the right bunch, you were a winner. That's how it was. Still is like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I'm sure you've seen these lakes cycle from smelt back through Cisco's back to smelt.
Yeah,
You've seen the weeds come and go.
yeah,
Uh, it must be wild to just see how these places change, even though, all these tournaments go to the same place at the same time of year. Um, I've seen them just change so much in my short time. I can't imagine what you guys have seen there.
Oh yeah, there's always changing going on. I got to credit bass fishing. It really opened my eyes on how little you need live bait in walleye fishing, because we're catching so many walleyes fishing in the KBI that it took a few years for a light bulb to come on and say, hey, why are we using bait? Like, we catch so many fish faster, and big ones. And then I got to the point where I would hardly ever use bait, except in maybe a late fall walleye tournament. And
Yeah.
that, and that sprung from bass fishing. So
Yeah. You don't want to waste half your day in the minnow bucket.
no. And then, it's a pain to take care of bait. And nowadays, like the laws you have, you don't even want to have bait with you sometimes if you're going province to province. So, you can't transport it. And it's for me, bait became a hindrance. And I still, don't get me wrong, I like using bait still once in a while.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they just bait fish. That's how they fish. So
Yeah.
you can't knock them down for that. I mean, it's a great way to fish.
Yeah. It's playing for keeps.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's
Those fish.
no better way to put the ball in your court. And if you
Yeah.
have 3 days a year to fish, you're putting some meat on that hook.
Oh
You're
yeah.
catching dinner.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, well, okay. So you're into the KBI now. You're starting to slide offshore. Canadian Bass Championship on Rainy Lake too. Bass and for bucks. Those are all firing up around the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're deep in all these. You're fishing all of them. You're doing well. Is this sounding about right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I could tell you a quick story too with Daryl. I think it was I can't remember what year it was, at Fort Francis.
Hmm.
I told them, right, like, we're fishing away. We had a few fish. And I said, I got this. He said, what do you mean? I said, I just figured this out. I got this. And we were starting to use the flukes and that. That day, I figured out where these fish were sitting, and I figured out how to catch them. And everybody does it now. I mean, everybody's using fluke, and color and size and everything did matter.
Yeah.
But nobody was onto that game other than Teddy and John
Hmm.
back then. Nobody really got that game. And when I locked into my head there, holy smokes, it was the fish catching went up. And I remember this well because I fished with Wayne Wagner and Daryl, and we had a 3-year run there where it was. If I wrote down the numbers, I look back at them and I go, it's impossible to do what we did, and
Yeah.
and that's because we had an edge. It was such a big edge, and there were some suspended fish too. That was when you found those ones, you were a real winner. But not, it was hard to fish for those. You know, now with the live imaging and that, it's probably a lot easier. But
Yeah. And you're going to get that live imaging. I heard from a little birdie that you might have already picked one up this
I
year.
I have one because we can't compete against guys like you without one. So
Yeah. The streets are murmuring. Like
yeah,
when Alex Keszler buys a live scope or mega live or whatever you ended up
I
getting.
I'm almost hoping they, after a year or two, they say put it on the shelf, boys.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, there's a lot of these guys that really, and myself included, especially on the GPS thing, they really don't have that foundation of like old school fishing deep or just old school fishing in general and totally rely on this stuff. So I mean, if you
yeah,
took it out of their hands, it'd be there'd be some crying and there'd be a few less entries. But
yeah,
anyway, you've got one now. So
yeah.
I mean, there's a few of us trembling a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
I wouldn't tremble too much. I
Well,
wouldn't tremble too much.
you're going to combine it with the tiller, which not many people are doing, right?
Yeah.
And
One
you'll,
thing. One thing about the boat setup that I drive, that big 2075 with the kicker and the front electric and the big tiller, is boat control. To me, is the key.
Mhm.
But even now with the spot lock and everything, it's just simplified everything. Guys can just go to their map, go right to where they want on the hump, hit spot lock, and they got it. Us old timers had to learn the hard way how to do all that stuff. Now
Yeah.
anybody can do it. You still got to catch them though. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can agree as much as anyone that the mental aspect and your decision making is, just as important as your technique
Yes.
and your fish finding abilities. So, I mean, that stuff can't be taught. It can't be bought.
No.
Uh, it's one of those things, and you have to have a passion if you're going to chase that down and put it all together. And I'd imagine you'd agree with that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun all the way along. Like with the, I did the seminars, and I did seminars with Amanda at the boat show here locally, and I did with Bob Azumi and Al Linder and Gary Roach, and then the filming, that was always fun. I got in a little bit of filming here with Adventures North and the Linders, and it's cool to see how people in the business are, like they're so jacked up about, okay, let's go, even though that's their, it's, you can call it their job. It's unreal. Like when they're not working, they say let's go fishing.
Yeah. No,
They're,
and I mean, you were in a great spot to where you could meet all these people, and I'm sure you were like me, where when you're around people that aren't talking hardcore fishing, you just don't really feel like you're in place. And when you get around these guys, you can just let her fly, and that's all
oh
you
yeah,
talk about.
yeah, it's fun, lots of fun, lots of
Yeah.
fun.
Well, I like watching the videos from Linders and Adventures North, and you've got a lot of good stuff on there. You also have a pretty hot YouTube video from a few years ago, and everyone listening to this probably knows this trick, but it's putting the elastic bands on your crankbait treble hook so you can store them, a
Yeah.
lot more efficiently and get at them. And that's one of your tricks, and that's one of probably 50 of them that people don't realize came from you. So that it's just a cool thing to know that things like that just come from this small little area we're in. Because there's really no reason that this small little population and this dense little area and community, that has all these tournaments, we really shouldn't have the angling edge over anyone else or anything like that. But guys like you, and it just adds every year. The passion's just
Oh,
thick here.
it is. It really is. Like bass and walleyes. The people around here have the passion, and boy, there's a lot of good anglers. Like we have a lot of good anglers that don't even compete.
Yep.
There's so many. We have a really good core base of really good anglers for the population that we have.
Yeah, and I mean, one way you can really see it is if you look at tournament results, it's always close, and that's not just because of the fisheries. It's because the bar is so high from you, Gussie. The list goes on. It's a giant list, and if you don't want to give up half your paycheck every weekend, then you need to adapt
Yeah,
just to be able to compete with you guys. So you just kept raising that bar, and everyone went with it. So
yeah, yeah. It's been a fun ride, boy. It's not over yet, but
no, no, you're still winning tournaments.
yeah,
I was like, oh, when's the last time Kesler won? He won, oh, okay, Bassin for Bucks in probably 2014 or so. And I was like, okay. And then he probably won Lund Mania 3 times since. Then I'm thinking, oh, he won Falcon Lake a couple years ago. Like it just kept
yeah.
popping up. You are not anywhere near done.
It's pretty cool at my age to be able to win. I credit that a lot to Daryl. He keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's awesome that Daryl's into it, and Amanda too is.
Yeah,
She's as hardcore as anyone I've ever met.
yeah,
She's into it. Her and Logan won that one on Shoal Lake a couple years ago.
yeah.
They're players in every tournament. They practice hard. When they first had those twins, I saw them out like, you know,
Oh,
just
they were just little
kids
and they
were
were
like
out in the
fresh out of
boats.
the hospital, and they were on the floor of the London just ready to go May long weekend.
Yeah, I guess it's in the blood.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he should be proud of that.
I am.
Um,
I am.
Well, let's get back to, we keep panning back from your story coming up and sidebarring, which is great. There's a lot of good stuff in here, and I'm hanging off of every word. We kind of left off Canadian Bass Championship, KBI, and Soon Arrows, Bass and for Bucks, the three big ones. And you were saying how you were catching them on the fluke and jig head, otherwise known as moping.
Yeah.
Hanging a minnow. For some reason, people in the U.S. call it Demiki rigging. So, uh, did it? You were obviously around for the birth of this thing. Was it you guys that started doing it? Did the Linders bring it over from Walleye World, or like how did this thing develop? Because this is a technique that was truly born in this part of the world. They're still catching up down south. Um,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure who gets credit for that. You know,
well, I'll cut you
there's
off there because all of you deserve 100% credit for it. Because even if you weren't the first one to have it, you're involved in the innovation of the technique. So I'll let you continue there. But
yeah, but there's several people that were close to doing that. You
mhm,
know, but I don't know. It's just Al and Jimmy, or no, it was Jimmy and Billy
mhm.
when they won Fort Francis. They were doing something a little bit different too. They had a couple of things going, so it's hard to say
They
how.
were mixing in some jerk baits too, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to say who would get the full credit of. I'm not one for taking credit from anybody, so
Yeah. Well, I mean, either way, like I said, you guys all worked at innovating it and refining it,
yeah,
to where it's now in a place where Gussie can go down to the Tennessee River, or Cooper and myself can go down to Cherokee
yeah,
and just have such an arm up. Even though everyone knows about this thing, it's with the internet now. It's just one of those things that's kind of born into anglers now, and that's because of you guys. So I'm pretty proud to come from an area like this where we can lay claim on something like that. And it's not
yeah,
just that. Like there's another group of the shallow water, like old school guys that did the same thing with the marabou jig.
yeah,
So I mean,
yeah. Similar, yeah, very similar. Just
yeah.
throw that little black beauty down there and put it between the weeds and just hang on till it shows up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean these are top 10 worldwide smallmouth tactics now that
But
were refined
you
here.
know, correct me if I'm wrong, but the fishing is changing as we speak, though. You know,
I agree.
you can you can think you can go catch them like that all the time, and there's times of the year it works really good, but there's other times you're not going to be able to catch them like that.
Hmm.
Not to you're not going to get to a winning bag, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it's evolving all the time, this fishing, and we get all those beautiful products to use, and a lot of people they're stuck on the same thing. You should never be stuck on the same thing, because the stuff that these companies are making for us to try, it's like those poor fish. I really feel sorry for them. They don't
Yeah.
have nobody down there helping them. They just want to eat.
Yeah, I mean they've got evolution on their side at least.
Yeah,
They're getting a little bit smarter in where they hang out.
yeah.
You can really see it down south where they they're on to you.
They're smarter.
Yeah, they'll always adapt. Well, I hope they will, but I think that they'll always adapt to what's around them. And I do think with all this sonar offshore stuff going crazy that it's going to make a shift back to the shallows at some point. Like they're going to evolve enough to go where they can't be
Yeah,
radared. And
yeah.
but always something cool to watch. And I'm
I'll tell you too. The biggest keys for me too for success all these years has been the experience you gain from every trip out, but the versatility. I think you got to be able to, on the fly, say, okay, no, this is not it. I got to come up with something, and keep pushing yourself and not be scared to try anything.
Yeah, scrap your practice.
Yeah, like I've pre-fished, say, a walleye tournament dragging crankbaits, and just you can't lose. It's that good. And then the first 3-4 hours of the tournament, you're scratching your head. You can hardly catch a fish on a crankbait. You got to say to yourself, hey, time to jump in that other boat with the different stuff or something, because we ain't going to do it like this. Things change rapidly. Fish move all the time. And so being versatile is probably one of the biggest keys.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously you guys have dialed that in over the years.
Yeah.
A one trick pony doesn't last very long in this world.
No. And it could be as simple as the same bait, different color. I've had days like that where it just blows your mind how you change the color. Then your partner puts it on. Now you're both slamming them. Now you're back in the game. That's how simple it is sometimes.
How drastic of a color change are you talking? Do you mean
Uh,
like from going with a hint of brown in your minnow to a hint of black,
no,
or
like say everybody's using a white jerk bait. Then you go to like a darker one, like a gold and black one that I hardly ever use. But then a few times I did use it, it was like, you better be using it.
do you ever throw anything wild out there, like these crazy super chartreuse or bubble gums or anything
Yeah,
like that?
once in a while. Yeah.
I figured you might.
Oh yeah, once in a while.
I don't have the stones to try that, but a tinkerer like yourself, I'm
Don't
sure. I'm
don't
sure you.
rule anything out. I can tell you that. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't rule anything out, because and the best time to experiment on fish is when you're on fish too.
Hmm.
You know.
I got to be honest. It's a little bit scary hearing that your mind's still this open
Oh, it
after
is.
40 some years of tournaments, because I could feel mine start to close in my 30s, and I really had to work to broaden my horizons and
Yeah,
open my
but
eyes a
see,
little bit. So
I'm not demeaning anybody in any way, but you didn't have to go the hard route. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I
Like
agree.
you
If you
didn't
took
have
the
to.
GPS off my boat, I'd be in the bush in Devil's Gap.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, if it ended at flashers, and that's the best they ever made for fish locators, I'd probably be one of the happiest guys on the planet.
Hmm.
And I know a few others that would be too. Because we
Yeah.
used to grid search a lake, just like they do when they're GPSing, like they're mapping. And we would drive for hours to look for that. Oh, there's a hard spot. And then you're just licking your lips when you find one of those, because nobody else knows it. It was crazy. It was
Yeah, and
crazy,
you have to
exciting.
triangulate to figure out how to get
Yeah.
back to that spot.
Oh, and you had to. Yeah. Yeah. You really had to. It's amazing how good you got at that too. You're out in a big body of water, and there's a little rock pile. Say it's a 40-foot basin, and a little rock pile comes up to like 18 feet. And you're driving around. All of a sudden, boy, it gets hard a little here. Oh, it's close. And then you always got there. You always found it. Yeah, it was
Yeah, you're
amazing.
hurting my head thinking about how I would even survive back then.
I'd
And
like to see just a flasher tournament somewhere once. That'd be pretty cool. New
yeah,
lake, no map.
we got to find some flashers. I mean, Markham still makes ones
Yeah,
that you
Markham makes
clip
perfect.
onto your boat. Do you still have a flasher on your boat?
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Is it a Markham?
Yep.
Cool. LX5?
Yep.
That's
Actually,
awesome.
two of them. They both do different things, though. We'll get into that one day.
You're digging deep.
Nah, it's been fun, and the people I met along the way, and that later in life now, like, you really feel like helping people more too.
Right.
You know.
You're not so guarded with your.
I've unlocked the vault for some people there and made their fishing life a lot better. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And it feels good doing that. Just give them a little tip and make their fishing a little fun, and it becomes more fun, and it's pleasurable doing that.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to throw some crumbs along the way and
Oh
get
yeah,
people
I
into the
always
sport.
have, like, during seminars and always
Yeah.
trying to teach people how to fish.
If you just block everyone out and they catch 9 pounds every weekend, then, they're not going to sign up for any tournaments. And these
No,
massive open tournaments that we have that nowhere else has are just going to go
I,
away.
I
So,
I was always pretty willing to give out the deck of cards, but once in a while I would pull the aces and keep them in my pocket.
yeah.
That's simple terms.
Yeah. Well, Ted Stooner told Brian and I one time at Bassin for Bucks, we said, we're like, we can't catch these fish. We're 18-year-old idiots. And, we were finding these fish offshore and we're like, we just can't catch them. They're denying us and we can't catch them. And we looked over and saw you snap jigging, like on a similar piece of structure. You're probably
Mhm.
second or third in the tournament or whatever, and you're snap jigging your rods. And we're like, oh, that's what we got to be doing. And we told Stooner that night, and he's like, no, Alex Kesler's the master of deception.
He's probably right.
You're a dirty dog out there.
Well, I don't know.
A buoy with 8 feet of rope on it that floats away.
Yeah,
That's a
that I learned that from the American guys.
yeah.
Yeah, a couple old American tournament guys that came up, and they would just follow these guys. At Manaki, the tournaments there, they would follow them. So they would throw out like 6, 8 markers, and only
Mhm.
one would be the real one.
Yeah.
And they go the next day and pick them up. Which way's the wind going? They go find their markers and do it all over again. Yeah.
How
I
about
mean,
it? Like, if you were coming into weigh-ins, would you mask your rods up or throw out a decoy once in a while?
well, if you got something that's really good, you don't want to be coming in with that tied on visible.
Yeah.
We're all like that. I mean,
Yeah.
nowadays it's not so much, but yeah, it's when you got an edge, you got to hang on to it as long as you can, because it is getting out. You know, Somebody's going to find out what you did. Somehow, it always gets out.
Yeah. I mean, it happens so much faster now with technology. I mean,
Yeah,
it kind of trickles down from the Bassmasters and
yeah,
everyone sees it and, it's just part of the thing. It really narrowed the field, but like you
yeah,
said, you got to have an edge and it doesn't matter if it's a machete or a razor blade as long as you've got an edge and you only have to win by 0.01.
yeah. That's right. And I'll tell you, winning is hard. I've been blessed. I've had my share winning in both bass and walleye tournaments, and it's hard to win. It really is. It
Yeah.
has it has to go right.
Any size tournament, I feel, is
Yeah,
hard to win.
yeah.
How many do you think you've won?
You know what? I can't even put a number on that. If I won one a year, I won 46. But there's some years I won 3 or 4, and some years I didn't. So I don't know. I have no idea. I've won at Manaki probably 7, 8 times, 10 times. I don't even know.
You
Yeah,
won so much there, they had to move the tournament.
yeah, yeah. I guess so.
They blamed it on a slot size, but it
Yeah.
was just to get you out of your element a little bit.
No, and
Well,
it just comes from building that confidence. I mean, you know, now it's for me it's a learning curve again
mhm.
with all the new technology. And I'm not knocking the technology, but sometimes it's I don't know. I'm old. I don't really want to. Everything was fine. Then you guys showed up with all the fancy stuff.
Well, and now I'm kinda like in the middle where I'm watching the young crop and being like, "Ah, I don't wanna fish for 16 hours today to compete or to
Well,
keep up."
I'm gonna give you a tip, and you probably do have two on your boat anyways. You better have a spare transducer for your life, because if it goes out and you don't, how are you gonna fish?
I know. I know. I have one.
Yeah, I know you do. I thought you did,
I
but you
had to
know what?
buy I
For
bought one late
me,
in the year.
if mine quit, I haven't used it yet, but if mine quit, I think I'd still be fine.
Yep.
I that's just the way I feel. Like
Yeah.
maybe I
I mean,
wouldn't win or
I would
anything,
just for
but
me, I would just change my strategy.
yeah,
I make it a point to not totally neglect the bank as much as I love fishing offshore,
yeah,
but still have at my camp, I've got a boat with no grass on, and I make sure to go out fishing just because that's going to happen one day.
Oh yeah,
you
I
know,
agree.
or if you break your trolling motor,
Yeah,
you will mop the floor with everyone fishing out of a tiller.
yeah. That's the beauty of. I've always been a tiller guy, and you fish from the front or the back.
Yeah.
The front
Yep.
electric goes down, I got the back. If the kicker goes down, I got the big engine. So if that goes down, then okay, you're out. You know.
If that goes down, someone doesn't want you to win.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good stuff, Kez.
Hey, and I've been so fortunate, like all my life, to know the Linders and Roach, Hammond Roots, and you guys, Gussie and Stooner, Goozy, all the boys, like, and really competitive group too around here we have, you know, like,
And that's because of the drive that you guys
yeah,
brought to the table.
it's the way we are here, like all of us, the people that, there's so much to know, and it's out there for you to grab what you can and learn what you can, and there are no limits. I mean, you can anybody can be a really really good angler if they put their mind to it.
And you did it while working full time the whole time,
Yeah,
right?
I worked nights all my life, which,
Night shift, Monday
yeah,
to
4 nights a week, so I can get the Friday off to do my pre-fish. That's how it was.
yeah, and I'm sure you were competing against,
Yeah, I did go
lots
down
of
to the
people,
US. I at a young age too, I competed down there in the Manufacturers Walleye Council circuit, and
PWT.
PWT, and I went to the first invitational PWT, and I remember very well. I was second the first day, and I was fishing something I never ever really did: slip bobbers
Yeah.
on Mille Lacs Lake and shallow rocks. I don't think I've ever used a slip bobber before then.
Yeah, you adapted.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah, yeah. That was something I'll never forget.
And they must have been looking at you like, "Who the hell's this Canadian down here?
Yeah,
And why is he in second place?"
well, it could have been better. The wind blew, I think, the second day, and things didn't work out like you want. A lot of guys damaged their boats, and it
Yeah.
was that lake gets pretty rough.
Yeah. Big
But
difference in tournaments from the US to Canada too, right? Do you notice that?
yeah, yeah,
The I mean, in Northwestern Ontario, it seems like a lot of these big tournaments they're events, there's bands and huge crowds, bigger
yeah,
crowds. The only tournament with a bigger crowd is the Bassmaster Classic,
yeah,
than the tournaments up here. So I mean, that's kind of another factor. As goofy as it sounds, you have to be able to, like, when you're young and coming up, you have to be able to deal with all that too. A
yeah,
lot more pressure from that. Nightlife is a whole other factor you've got to deal with.
yeah. We were good at that too, and you got rid of probably half the field if they were partying with you.
You never hopped in on it.
Oh, I partied like crazy, but I knew that I'd be fine in the morning. Some other guys thought they would be.
Yeah.
They weren't.
Did you ever take guys out of the competition that way?
Yeah, I don't know, we just sit and play cards and drink all night, and back then that's what you did at tournaments,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
kept them up till 4 in the morning, and you had to get up at 5, and they're holding their heads, and we might have been hurting, but we would never admit it.
Yeah. I just thought it was kind of a unique element to tournaments here because you don't see it anywhere else.
Yeah.
They're just a big party, but
Well, fishing tournaments was a party. That's how it all started.
yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Well, I'm sure we could talk off air about that forever.
Yeah, that's take my advice out there. You don't want to be good at drinking,
Yeah. Yeah, we'll pass that on. These
especially
young guys
especially
know.
nowadays.
No, I mean the young guys know to steer clear of it if they want to compete, and you see some people fall off once in a while. But
Yeah.
I do want to ask you before you go. We've been talking about the up and comers a lot. What direction do you see it going? Like, are you happy with the direction it's going, or if you could
You know, I,
take the
I'm
reins?
I'm gonna go I'm gonna go neutral on that one. I'm not happy. I'm not sad. It's if anything I'm unhappy about is the fish.
Hmm.
The fish are they're getting targeted pretty hard
Hmm.
everywhere now, and it's gonna, you know, it's gonna change fishing. Sure, I'd like to have, I'd like to go back in time a little bit. That'd be pretty cool, but that ain't gonna happen anytime soon. And I'm at an age, if I choose to get alive like I did, Mega Live, I got one now. Me and Daryl
Yeah.
have one, so
Yeah.
we'll have our fun with it and everything. And hey, it's a crazy tool. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, I admire your compassion when you're talking about the fish, because that's something that I've really kind of seen slip.
Well,
You know,
tell me in your opinion. Now you're an expert with the live. Uh,
student.
yeah, student with the live. Like
I'm a
how
learner.
how often are you casting where there isn't a fish?
Uh, I try not to.
Yeah.
I try not to.
So
But
now take that's one guy. Now take everybody with that pressure, and no matter who's on the water and they have the live unit, their fish are getting targeted steady. That's something the fish aren't used to.
yeah, and I mean, I think it's something that you know anglers kind of have to take into consideration too. These fish are going to get caught twice as much in their lifespan now. Like you
Yeah.
need to take care of them. You see guys
Oh yeah.
in videos flopping these things off the carpet like
Yeah.
they're Greg Hackney. They'll bash them off the console and the carpet and stuff them in the live wells and let them go upside down and take a picture of 20 pounds on one hand. Like it just is. I mean, as technology evolves, like you said, like these things are getting beat on, and it's good to have guys like you showing people how to fizz and educating people on fish care, and um, you know, I know
And
you
you know
feel
what?
about that.
Handling like how you even the little ones that you always catch a bunch of little ones. Like
Yeah.
so many people grab them so hard and squeeze them, and it's not good for them.
No,
No,
no, no.
I
I
had a
think that's something we got
biologist.
to keep pushing on for sure.
Yeah, you gotta handle everything with care. It's a valuable resource. We all love to fish, and hey, we all love to eat fish too. That's why limits are in place,
Mhm.
and there's times and areas where they'll have to change limits. I think Lake of the Woods is something going to happen there.
Yeah, they're looking at it right now.
Yeah, it's due to pressure and everything, and
Yeah, yeah.
fish
I
were
mean,
missing, and
fair enough.
yeah, and that's kind of my point. Like that's why I feel for the fish so much because they don't have anything extra down there to help them, and we're coming for them.
Yeah,
And don't get me wrong, I'm coming for them just like you are, but we catch a lot, but we let almost everything go, which is good. But you still have to do that in a harmless fashion. You know, you don't
yeah,
just rip the hook out of them as quick as you can and fire them back so you can get to the next one. No, you got to take your time. And I'm used to fishing a lot of barbless in Manitoba here,
yeah,
and it does save fish. Even up north, when I go for those trout, it's barbless. I would
yeah.
not want to handle those fish with treble hooks and barbs up there. You're gonna
No,
get hurt. They're wild,
yeah.
absolutely wild.
My dog got hooked in the face this winter. I was on a barbless trout waters, and he bit my jigging shadow wrap that has 5 hooks on it,
Oh yeah,
and it went into his tongue. And if it wasn't barbless, I don't know what would have happened. It was a
yeah.
bad
I've
scene.
had barbs in my hand at the KBI a few times. Yeah, it's not fun.
Well, just pinch your barbs in tournaments going forward.
Yeah, well, I have because I did fish in the barbless section quite a bit, and it
Yeah,
did cost. Like they
yeah.
jump and get off.
All part of the game, though. Hey.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, Kez, I'm looking forward to seeing you. I'm sure we'll be seeing you around. How many tournaments are you doing this year?
I'm not even sure what's gonna happen. We're doing Lund Mania and Bassin' for Bucks, and there's gonna be a few more in there. I'm just taking it as it comes.
Good. I like it.
When you're retired, you think you want to go to them all. And if I had sponsors really helping me a lot, I would go to a lot more.
Yeah.
And I would even entertain going down to the walleye ones in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you get to this age and I don't know. It's a tough gig. It's not a young man's game, but it's not an old man's game either.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you're doing it on your vacation, there's nothing relaxing about it. So
No.
definitely don't blame you for wanting to kick back a little bit.
Yeah.
You grinded for for a long time, but I'm looking forward to seeing you around, and
Yeah.
um,
You bet.
it was great to have you on here and share your words of wisdom. And final takeaways that I got from you is, with technology comes responsibility.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true.
So I'm really glad you hammered that point home. And we're going to chase people around on this podcast. We're going to talk to the champs, of the local tournaments, and shine a little light on them. And I have a feeling you'll be back on here pretty soon.
You never know. Hey, congrats there at Cherokee.
I appreciate it, bud.
That's
You're always the first one to
you.
text me, and
You went down there, just like when Gussie went, and you fished against the best in the world. And you did really well. And your buddy Coop is his name there.
yeah,
Yeah. If you ever meet him again, just tell him congrats too, because I don't know him, but what he did was really amazing too.
yeah, it was awesome to watch. It was awesome to watch, and both of us were using a technique that you helped father. So,
Yeah.
when you go to bed tonight, think about that.
Yeah. Creating a monster again. See?
You're
It's all
getting
in fun, man.
all right, bud. Well, thanks again for hopping on the first podcast here, and we'll
Yeah.
see you around real soon.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, pal.
You
Appreciate it.
too, pal. Yeah.
Well, that was Alex Kesler. Opened with a story about 4 dead pike on a stringer 47 years ago, fishing from shore and winning a boat and everyone's prize money. So that was pretty awesome. We could have talked forever on every single avenue. You get a couple fish heads together, and it can just ramble. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this, and hopefully it turns out pretty good. I mean, we'll see how the equipment did. I'm on the old mic cam now, and my GoPro shut her down before the podcast and whatever. But can't wait to get down to Sturgeon Bay, talk to a few more anglers down there, and bring you guys the report. Not really sure how Spotify works. I think you gotta download or write reviews. Apple reviews, write me a review. Positive would be ideal, but I got thick skin. I can handle some criticism. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, write a comment, write who you want to see on here next. Hit like, whatever else. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you soon.